So, do you have a greenhouse? Are you thinking about a greenhouse? Well, there's some things in which one needs to consider. Now, we in the Milwaukee, Chippewa Falls, Twin Cities area, we have Wisconsin Greenhouse Company as a sponsor of the program. They do fantastic and phenomenal work, as simplistic or as elaborate as you want a greenhouse to be. Those are the people to get a hold of, which Wisconsin Greenhouse Company. But if you're building or buying wherever you're at, there's a number of things and one needs to consider. I think the most the biggest question is, number one, do you really need a greenhouse? Not to detour you from this is my dream, but there are purposes for a greenhouse, good reasons and bad. And you just don't want to go out and spend the money, the time, the effort for something that is not going to meet your requirements as a gardener.
Right. So you have to think about one of the first things that you want to think about is what will you use it for. So for example, maybe you just want a small little walk-in type of greenhouse where you're going to start seeds and then perhaps extend the seasons by maybe moving some containers in there, something like that. Or you want something larger where you're going to do something where you'll start seeds in there, but then you'll also use it as like an outdoor patio, entertainment area, etc. Or perhaps a hybrid situation, or maybe you just want to know your options versus cost and what you can do with a greenhouse. Okay, now if there's different types of greenhouses here. There's the kind that you buy at the garden center that's a little 10 by 4. It's got some metal shells, and if the wind picks up, the town next to you gets a free greenhouse. Then there is greenhouses that have a foundation that has, you've poured a slab potentially, and they are fixated to the ground. There are some that are not fixated to the ground, but they are heavy enough in which they're not going to become a kite during a windstorm. Your mileage may vary on this, but do you need a permit? Are you even allowed to have such a unit in your residence, on your property, in your HOA, in your town? And we're not going to get, because it's an hour show, it's America. We should be able to have what we want on our own property. I get that. I understand that. Vote somebody else in if you don't like the rules. So you need to figure out the zoning for your particular area. Now in the country, that's a different thing. You kind of do what you want, and not a lot of people say anything. But if you're in an HOA or in a very tight suburbia area, people watching everything you do. And if you and based on, is it going to be heated? Is it going to be electric? That determines in some environments whether you can or can't have it. If it's not going to be heated, it's not going to have electric, it's considered an outbuilding, so it's okay. But if it's going to be electric, it's a whole other thing on your property and with taxes and insurance and township rules and zoning. Or you can build a really high fence and then nobody will know it's electric. That
might be against some rules as well.
Just saying. There's, read between the lines. So zoning, how much space it's going to take up, heating, electric, ventilation, fans, what have you.
And then the other thing is, okay, and we're going to go down this rabbit hole. If it's an outbuilding and you can have it, but it cannot be affixated to electricity, is it okay for you to have a very large power station to power that greenhouse, even though it's technically an outbuilding, as long as you're not connecting it to the grid? Is that a loophole? Is that a gray area?
I don't know. Yeah. That's the thing.
Throw the solar panel on top, have your power station inside. It's not connected to the grid. It's an outbuilding.
Right. That's another thing. And there could be,
Chad Canals, which was the crew chief for the 7-time NASCAR champion Jimmy Johnson, he said he reads the rule book not for what's in it, but for what's not in it. And a lot of it's gray area.
Gray area. So there's that. And then, so the other thing you consider is, do you want to go with a DIY situation? Do you want to go with something where somebody installs it and builds it for you? What's your plan? Or
if you want to build it yourself, do not go down the road of, well, I've never built anything, so I'm just going to hire somebody to build it. There's plenty of information on the thing called the internet that, and you've got friends and family and neighbors and church members or club members or whatever. Just ask around. You can do this. You're not incapable of building something just because you've never built it before. You're going to make mistakes, yes. But don't ever say, well, I've never done it before, so I guess I can't do it. You can do it. Right.
You certainly can do it. And that's the thing is maybe you can also see how you like it by building like a simple hoop house. Mm-hmm. And before you decide to invest either more time or more money. And if you build a hoop house, you'll have that plastic. So if you want to make something a little bit more
long-term,
complicated, long-term, whatever you want to call it. So a hoop house or a high tunnel is basically like a very DIY way to have a greenhouse or extend your seasons in a way, but it's kind of more, I guess, quick and dirty or less of a huge commitment.
Do you already have a greenhouse and you're not aware of it, such as a 3-season porch or a very, very sunny bay window that you can convert into a very small greenhouse for the time being until you either financially are able to or get the permits needed or actually decide, hey, this has worked very well for 3 years. Let's go big and let's really commit to this.
And I think that's a good idea is because you might see somebody who has a greenhouse and you're like, I want that. I definitely need that in my life. And then after a while, you're like, well, maybe I don't.
Just like anything else, ask somebody who has one.
Right.
What can I, you got a greenhouse. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What would you do different if you could do it over again, knowing what you know now? That is one of the best questions that you can ask anybody about anything. You've had it for 5 years. What's the worst thing about it? And what would you do different if you started all over today?
Absolutely. And I think that having other people's opinions and experiences are 100% true. And it's something that you and I have done with a lot of things, mm-hmm. And continue to do. And I think a greenhouse, I think that if I were to have a greenhouse, I would have one that was very pretty. It was glass. And I would guarantee that I would make sure that that's something that I wanted and that I could go sit outside, maybe on like whether it be a muggy night or a buggy night or something like that, where I'm away from the elements but still kind of within the elements. Is it worth the investment for the few nights a month that I might sit out there? Probably not. But if you do a lot of entertaining or if you want to get really serious about sometimes growing things and you don't have the space inside your home, this all makes sense.
Well, greenhouses are not greenhouses as they were 30 years ago. Greenhouses today is an addition to the residence. It looks as if it is part of like it's a guest house, almost as elaborate and as beautiful as some of these structures can be. Sometimes it looks better than the house itself.
This is true. And we've seen some beautiful ones by the Wisconsin Greenhouse Company. Yes. At different places, and they do a really beautiful job. So there's that option.
If you did it, you could do tropical plants inside. Have half of it as a tropical greenhouse, and the other half as a hot tub.
Right.
I don't know if the chlorine would mess. I'm sure that would mess.
Well, you probably
the plants all up.
Yeah, probably. You'd have to do some sort
on
of
paper. It looked good.
Natural. Filtration or something. Who knows? Yeah.
But yeah, greenhouses, it's a unique thing. And we grew and grow and still continue to grow indoors without a greenhouse. We start our seeds indoors. We have them under the Happy Leaf LED grow light. And if you want a Happy Leaf LED grow light for winter growing here, you can, or anytime, you can use coupon code Joey Holly to save 10% off orders over $90 at happyleafled.com. That's Joey Holly in the coupon code, and you can save some money there. Phenomenal lights. They've worked for years. We've never had a problem. We've had them since 2013, I believe it's been. So it's a really thing. But we used to grow without grow lights too. And it was a west-facing window, and the plants would grow towards the window, and every day we'd rotate the trays, and they'd grow back. It really makes a whole lot better whenever you have the best grow lights on the market. The plants really seem to be happier. they are happier when you grow with the best grow lights. So you don't need a greenhouse. Obviously, a greenhouse provides you much more surface area and a much more freer palette to paint with plants and start things that you could never start indoors or never would have the space to start indoors.
I totally agree. And even if you've heard all this and you're like, heck with growing stuff in my greenhouse, I want this extra patio enclosed space, then that's fair too.
And in some places, in the northern areas, people would grow things, they'll heat it. They will grow things like pineapple, which takes 18 months, 24 months, and other things like medicinal herbs, because it's legal to do in many states, and it's a reality that whether you are anti that or not, it's happening. It is legal. Not from a federal level, but from a state, yes, I understand that. And there are some independent studies that have shown that there is some great benefits if used properly to help certain ailments in the human body. So there's a lot of things in which you can grow, and a lot of things in which you need to consider before you just go 8 by 12, there it is in the backyard, let's start building it up, the lumber's coming this afternoon.
And don't think that somebody won't report you, because they will.
You got to be careful. They may just report you for thinking of it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Holly, summer is coming to a close, and the kids are back in school or very close to it. Nights are colder, and you've probably just kind of given up and forgotten about the lawn and said, shove it. But you don't want to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have problems next spring.
I don't know. Some people are still probably thinking about their lawns, but just because it's fall, we don't want to forget about it. And those Japanese beetles, we can't forget about them either. They may be gone, but they're not far. Not only did they feast on your roses and berries this summer, they laid eggs on your turf so they can start again next year. Take a stand with Phylum's Grub Gone. Grub Gone is a non-chemical BT granule that specifically targets scare pests and their larvae. You apply the granule with a spreader, irrigate it into the soil, and let the naturally occurring bacteria do its job.
The best part of Grub Gone, it's easy to use, and it's the only non-chemical choice that effectively controls grubs. And the best part about it, it's non-toxic to bees and other beneficial insects. So Grub Gone has no label restrictions, so you don't have to worry about intoxifying the flowers that these insects are consuming the pollen from. To learn more, you can go to grubgone.com or phyllumbioproducts.com, the natural choice.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.